when we correct this here, this inner union in people, what we will squeeze out of people is love, and the results we're going to see is going to be love, it rippled in the world. So I do think that the origin story is also where the answer is to a lot of the pain, to most of the pain. It's the core of it.
Nothing you do matters unless what you do matters. I'm Amadon DellErba, and this is Get Real or Die Trying. All right, how we doing, tribe? Amadon DellErba here. Welcome to episode 43 of my podcast, Get Real or Die Trying. I'm very excited to be sitting down here today with Rima Zanoun. She is in Dubai, and one of my producers found her on Instagram, and we've been checking out her videos and what she has to say, and definitely was attracted to her message and her wisdom and some of the truths she speaks, and looking forward to learning more about who she is, what she does, and her thoughts on life, and definitely interested in having a fascinating conversation. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to technology as well.
I was just thinking that.
This.
Yeah, it's 10 p.m. here and 9 a.m. there, and we're making it happen. Right. So that's great. So I've done a little research on you from what I could find online. And for my listeners, this is the first time we've met right here through the Cyber Connect. So it's going to be a fresh conversation for everybody, getting to know each other here, and excited to just dive into it. So let's start with your origins, because I was fascinated to see that you grew up in Canada and you went to school there, university, and I saw that you studied philosophy, which is something I love. And now you live in Dubai, of course. And what is your heritage?
So I was born and raised in the UAE, so in Abu Dhabi, Dubai.
Okay.
So they're really an hour away from each other. They're kind of the same.
Yeah.
But I lived in Canada for 6 years when I was a kid. Was born here, moved to Canada up until I was 6.5, and then moved back here. My dad came here in the 70s, late 70s in UAE, so just right at the beginning of the oil discoveries and the companies being built, etc. And I did study philosophy, which is a passion and love of mine. I think philosophy and theology are pretty much the same, except one has a little more mysticism around. But they're the art of the heart intelligence of thinking from a different place. And so I've been in UAE most of my life. This is the land that I feel is home for me. In terms of just my values very much resonate here. There's a sense of freedom. There's a sense of accomplishment that is so speeded, so everything that we want to kind of create or do and find the communities to do it and get it done quickly is a really good land for that. My origins, Algerian, 12 generations Amazigh, so Berber, the Sahara people.
Wow, cool.
And that's my land. I got all the grandmothers with the tattoos and that's my origins.
Very cool. Some deep connection there. Resilient people.
Yeah, very true. You know about them.
Oh yeah, I've done a little bit of study. I don't know a tremendous amount, but I know that just even the environment that they've lived in, your ancestors had to live and survive in, is pretty harsh, and history there and different things that have gone on. I'm sure has created a very resilient type of person.
Correct. Yes, resilience is one of them. What else is there? So resilience, silence and stillness, patience, those are the characteristics. I think different lands bring different energies. Desert people are known for being very connected to the sound as well. Lots of sounds in the desert, even though we might not think that. There's lots of sounds and different sounds. They're usually quite... The closest reference I could probably put out there is Pink Floyd's Cosmic Music. Kind of those sounds are cosmic. So you get quite a bit of that in the desert because of the winds and the movements of the winds and the sand, etc. So it's a very mystical land. I think when we think spirituality, we'll think of the lush nature of South America and the islands, but different lands have completely different energies and just as powerful.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Some of the great prophets all came from the desert, and the mystics. And I've done a lot of reading of some of the Sufi poets, Kahil Gurban and
Yeah.
Rumi and Tagore, and
Yeah.
a lot of them came from the desert, and there's like you said,
Correct.
you said stillness and silence. And I grew up in the high desert, a little different than probably the desert you're referring to, but still a desert area in Sedona, Arizona. I don't know if you ever heard of Sedona. It's kind of
Yeah.
a spiritual mecca. It certainly was more previously in the past. It's become quite a tourist attraction now, and I call it a spiritual circus. But over 4 million people a year go there to visit because it's just stunningly geographically beautiful with red rocks and formations and vortexes. And there's a feeling there and an energy that people pick up on and perceive and are drawn to and go there for healing and connection. And we have a spiritual nature retreat actually there in Sedona called Camp Avalon Retreat, and
Ah.
it's a beautiful land on Oak Creek, a beautiful creek you can swim in. I like to call it an open air temple. You don't need an edifice or a structure. There's the land itself and the connection and the ability to unplug and connect with the earth. And you mentioned the cosmic sounds, which I think is very cool because I myself, one of my key tenets for my own personal wealth and survival on this planet is nature. Connecting with nature and getting into nature and deep into nature, away from other human beings. There's a certain listening you
Yeah.
can achieve with the divine that you can't really get in the same way when you're surrounded by the energy of thousands of people in a city or millions of people even, and you got to get out into the silence, into those winds that you're talking about. And I got to say
Correct.
too, it's kind of cool you talked about cosmic music because my father is a lifelong musician, and he calls his music cosmopop. And then within cosmopop, he has different, genres. So he has cosmo country, which is like country music, or cosmo mystic, and cosmo Celtic, and cosmo jazz. And he creates this very cosmic music, and very spiritual music that's very different and uplifting, and really brings people into a state of higher consciousness and into connection with the Creator. And it's music is such a beautiful tool, I think, to transport human beings out of the ordinary and into the extraordinary if it's done right. It can also be something that can bring people into a lower chakra and base emotion too, and
Correct.
lower vibration. So, like anything in life, there's duality.
That's the thing about music. It's the first, isn't it? It's the first uh, sense that we develop in the womb,
We
and
hear,
that's how we
yeah,
start experiencing the world. Yeah, that's how we start experiencing the world, through the sound. And science has shown and discovered that the whole world is made through sound. Sound is what actually shapes some of the first atoms, etc., and the movement of everything. Because sound is frequency. It's the
absolutely,
vibration, and the vibration together moves things together, and that's what it does inside of us as well. That's why music is the number one kind of refuge for humans. What would we do without music? I don't know, because it
absolutely.
drops us immediately from here to here, which means it makes us connect immediately. It's that hack. It's like a priest. It's like going to a temple. It's like it
Yeah.
drops you straight from the head to the heart. Yeah.
Have you seen those experiments where they put sand on a table and they put the vibration of music into it? And if it's, beautiful, like classical music or higher music, the vibration, the sand vibrates into beautiful symmetrical geometrical patterns. And then when they put like heavy metal or angry music, it just scatters into no pattern. And it's really a powerful
Correct.
testimony
It's
to
incredible.
what's happening in our bodies. If we're listening to that angry, heavy, harsh music, it's stirring up our particle
Correct.
reality. And then when you have beautiful music, it's stabilizing and creating symmetry within us. And a lot to be said there. And Dr. Emoto,
Correct.
who's a Japanese scientist, also
Mhm.
did a lot of study around water, and molecules. And of course, we're
Yes.
70% water, our bodies. And he studied water. And even by writing with a piece of tape, love on water, and then studying the molecules under a microscope, he could see patterns of beauty. Then he wrote hate on a piece of tape and put it on a glass water bottle, and he looked at the molecules, and they were all disjointed and ugly. And that was just word. That wasn't even word spoken into it. That's just writing and putting it on there. So it's very powerful, and this is science. It's not theory. It's backed up with science. So there's a lot of great
It's true,
new science happening that I think.
religions speak of it in so many different ways. Religions speak of the breath,
Yeah,
and the breath, there's sound that comes, the voices. So with our words, and words are sounds. So they're the original sounds in our way of expressing. So they destroy, they build. Our words do that, whether they are written, whether they're said internally as well. We don't have to actually use the physical form, which is our actual sense of expression with the mouth, but you can say a word in your head. Spirit says a word in your head. We can hear words, we can speak to ourselves, and those sounds do create a vibration in our body. And and that's really what we see in meditation. A lot of what meditation is emptying the chamber and then seeing what arises. And what arises brings emotion to it, because emotion and sound, emotion and word are linked, are 100% linked. Can't
absolutely.
disjoint them. Yeah,
You
it's
mentioned
magic.
children, babies in the womb hearing sounds, and I saw on
Yeah.
your Instagram a video of you playing the handpan, and I
Yeah.
I have a handpan, and I played it to all of my kids. I have three kids while they were in the womb. So my
Oh,
wife would sit, on the bed, and I would put the handpan right next to her belly and play it. It's such a soothing sound, and play music for my kids
yeah.
while they were in the womb, and
Beautiful.
yep,
Beautiful. It is. Children are so sensitive, and they know, and they pick up on so much as well so quickly. Um, I was having a conversation about that with a group of ladies. Many of them are mothers, and I mean, we're all mothers, but they're mothering in this world. And we were speaking about how the misconception that we have on where the direction of the energy that happens with children. So children are, when they're born, their consciousness is already higher than ours, because they are the evolution. So they already come at a higher consciousness than ours. And the kind of tug of war that we have with them is unconsciously thinking we need to teach them. We're trying to pull them back to this consciousness, and that's a lot of the resistance we get from them, from the children, as opposed to kind of letting them lead us while
mm-hmm.
being there, just their sheltering protector, watering kind of energy. And that's what we are here to do: just water them and allow them to take us with them where they're going. And I think that's a whole other perspective to look at. It's quite a challenging perspective for parents as well, because they think they know, and what they're looking at doesn't make sense, which is normal, because different consciousness, different capacity to understand. We resist always this novelty, this new that says whatever I have right now isn't, might not be correct or needs improving, especially when it comes from a little person.
Yeah.
We might have a struggle with that a little bit, but they've got so much wisdom. They're born with it, and they've got so much. If we're just able to observe with a non-judgmental, non-fearful eye, I think.
No, it's totally true. I mean, I've learned so much from my children, and I have a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old, and then two stepsons who are 14 and 16. But especially the young children, because I've been involved in their life since they were born, it just taught me so much. And they're really, they're teacher. I call them teacher children, and especially my little girl, my 7-year-old. I mean, she'll line me out, she'll correct me, and I have to have the humility to accept that and know she's right. It could be the littlest thing. I might say a curse word, or I might be getting impatient or a little too rushed or harsh, and she'll say, Daddy, quit being impatient, out of the mouths of a babe. I can't deny it, because she's speaking absolute truth. I can't say you're wrong. I just have to say, you know what, you're right, honey. Thank you. What a blessing, to be confronted by such innocence too. And I think that's when you said they're born with higher consciousness than us. it's also that innocence. They're pure. And then, of course, as we
Yeah.
grow up on this planet, we start to lose our purity. We start absorbing the things of the world that aren't pure, and we're taught the wrong things, and it's such a responsibility to be a parent because we're responsible for teaching our children. And I think there's, in the millennials and, people my age, there's been more, I think, research and more of an awareness recently in the last, whatever, 10, 15 years about the importance of that, and not passing down our traumas or how we were raised or whatever it may be onto our children, breaking cycles and the responsibility of raising them in a higher way and letting them be guides for us. And there's the concept too that we study here in our community, and my father's kind of a leading spiritual teacher on the concept of star seeds. I don't know if you've ever heard of star seeds or indigo children.
Yeah.
And
Of course.
these are old souls, and not every
Yes.
child necessarily is an old soul. The way I understand it, and the spiritual teachings that I study and read, there's about 1 billion starseed on the planet, and about half of those, 500 million of those, have come through in the last 30 years. So there's a lot of young starseeds, millennials, and those are the older souls. And there's what now 7 billion people on the planet. So if you think about there's 8 billion now, yeah, 8 billion people on the planet. So you got 1 billion of those people are starseed souls. That means they've lived before, they've had past lives before, and they've had many lives, some more than others, and they're older souls. And there's different terminologies and different cultures and understandings of these souls. And a common mistake is to think that every single person on the planet has had past lives. There's an old soul, but most of the planet are what's called first light souls. And this is just my understanding.
Yeah.
I mean, I speak with an absoluteness based upon my own beliefs and research and understanding. But the books that I study in the Revelation and my teachers, my elders, have taught me about this, and it really starts to make sense when you dive into it because you can see an older soul versus a younger soul, and you can really see the difference, and you can connect with those differences and understand life and your perception of life and people in a much higher way when you start to see their soul. And just as you wouldn't expect, a 10-year-old child to have the depth of a 50-year-old human being and wisdom, although some really do. With adults, you can look at a first light soul, and you can look at an older soul, and you're going to have a different expectation from an older soul, or I am, once I discern that, because they've been around the block, so to speak, in different ways. Oh, and I have to ask, I saw on your Instagram, it says 300-year-old witch. And I kind of like that. I laughed at that. I'm like, well, she probably is, but I mean, she definitely is an older soul. I was curious what that meant to you.
Plus or minus a zero.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Who knows exactly how old?
it's a funny little thing there. Well, what is which we've got a meaning and an understanding for which. What is which? Women with intuition, women who are connected, old souls. There's so many different types. It's just that women have access to source from birth because we're born with the womb, which gives us which makes us the portal between the physical world and the spiritual world. Soul comes through us to land into a body that we birth, which makes us a portal, which makes us have access to that connection. And a woman is a woman when this is switched off and when she lives from the heart and lives from her heart intelligence and all the codes that are there. Hence why she also operates as almost as a temple or a priest to a man by connecting him back to his heart as well. I think a lot of the Arabic poetry in history speaks of that, which is the eyes of a woman, the eyes of a woman, the eyes of a woman. And really the mystical, non-mystical, which is there, is that a woman lives from her heart intelligence. She's in the space of the heart, which is the creation, the dream, or the one that dreamed this world. He created this world in terms of execution, but she dreams the world. And I'm speaking about the feminine and the masculine energies, of course. And yeah, so a man drops into his heart in the connection with a woman, so she brings him back down there. History speaks of oracles, witches, priestesses, etc., etc. They're all referred to the same thing, to a woman who's embodying her energy and the creatrix within. Now, when we speak of old souls, it's an easy. We've got so many of these expressions that are out there, and star seeds and old souls, and it's beautiful to have all of these because we're bringing language to something that doesn't have language, that is a knowing. It's anything that is God, truth, isn't words. It is knowing, and it's a knowing in the intelligence of the soul, intelligence of the heart. So we can describe it, and that's why most of the religions that speak have these incredible books with stories that sometimes don't make sense, that are difficult to comprehend, because we're really trying to explain with our mind, with our words, something that is way beyond what this form can communicate in any way, shape, or form, whether it's through the arts, etc. Artists communicate God. Artists who are plugged in communicate God, whether it's through music, through art, through the word, in whatever way they do it, imagery. We are communicating and showing God to each other through all the different expressions of this 3D, of this physical world, in the best ways possible. And we get little glimpses, and we try and put the puzzle together, and we all have our concept of it somehow. These are beautiful words that do refer to what is an old soul. It's a soul that's created a lot of different, in my opinion, a lot of different timelines simultaneously at the same time, has different timelines. Because again, in the world of spirit, of God, there is no time. Chronos is really what we experience in the 3D. In the 5D, it's kairos, there's no time. So souls don't have time. So to say old soul is kind of oxymoron. It's an oxymoron because there is no old to a soul. A soul cannot be old or new, it's a soul. It has an encoding, and this encoding is the blueprint of it, of what it's meant to do continuously in its expansion on different timelines. So it has possibilities of different missions, different timelines, and that's how I personally see it. And when we say this is an old soul, maybe a word that I think would be maybe more accurate is a deep soul, as in it has different levels and of depth of possibilities of lives. So it has already different codes of what lives and what possibilities it can experience, is experiencing at the same time, because again, time is not there. So it's different possibilities for a soul, as opposed to a soul that is maybe, I don't want to say surface, but more fresher. So a little bit more fresh, which means it has a little bit less possibilities of experiences that it could experience within its own blueprint. This is how I see things.
Yeah.
Maybe a little confusing or complex, but yeah, it's beautiful. But it is beautiful to think of past lives.
Yeah.
There's no past and there's no future. There's only now. So the past and the future, again, are stories in this 3D. So what is the now? And in the now, it's just now and the possibilities, the infinite possibilities of that now. And is the now a moment? No, because that would also be part of time. So it's all the possibilities of what is. It is that presence. And when you speak of children, what is it to be a child? Or when we think of childhood, what's beautiful about a child is the child doesn't have these concepts yet. So the self-concept doesn't exist for a child. It's barely being built. And we try to really speed up that process, and that's the biggest mistake we can make, but we try to give it a self-concept. And then it also really doesn't have much of a time-space concept. We try and give them that time-space. Tomorrow, today, 6 o'clock, now we sleep, it's nighttime, it's bedtime. If we really were to leave children and see how they move within the space, we would probably learn something just as observation, as opposed to saying, now you need to sleep, because in the morning we go to work and daddy goes to work and mommy does this, and then you go to have a nap because we're tired and we'll get rid of you for a few hours. So again, what is it that makes childhood so um, appealing and brings such a nostalgia to us in the heart of a child? Is that presence. And presence happens when there is no self-concept and we are not rigid with time, space, and there is no self-concept. As a
Yeah.
child is present. What he says to you, when your daughter said to you, you're not being patient, she didn't think about it. It came straight from here and it
Her
came
heart.
out.
Yeah.
A child's heart is on his tongue.
Yeah.
Whatever they think, they say. If they
Yeah.
think you're fat, they're going to tell you you're fat. That's what they think. They say it. And it comes out.
Yeah.
So it doesn't go through the filter of the self-concept.
Yeah.
Am I going to be appreciated? Are they going to like me? Is this right? Is this wrong? Is that presence?
No, that's beautiful. Wow, I mean, you brought up so much stuff. I was thinking, I came home today, and my 3-year-old boy, I had to stay in the city last night, so I wasn't here. And he said, and he often says this when I'm not here, he says, "Where was you?" And gets up, "Where were you?" And so I kind of correct him and say, "Well, it's were." But then I thought about it, and I was like, well, I was there. So he's kind of right. Where was I? Like the concept of time, and I was kind of laughing at it, like, where was I? Well, I wasn't in the home. I was somewhere else. And, I was trying to explain to a 3-year-old the difference between was and were and just the language. But then as I was doing it, I was like, it doesn't really matter. It was just, he has no concept of that. But it was enlightening to me, because I just kind of started thinking about the word was and wasn't, and I wasn't there. And so that's what he understood, and past tense and pretense has no meaning to him because it was right there. I'm here now, but where was I? It was very interesting. I wanted to circle back to, you brought up so many cool things, but back to being a woman and being connected to the heart and intuition. I'm a very alpha male, and so I've had to, and still am, of course, learning a lot about my masculinity and femininity and coming together and the beauty of that. And you said so many beautiful things about what a man can get from a woman through connecting to that heart, and men tend to be more logical in the mind circuitry, and women are in the heart circuitry and connection, intuition, and feeling, which is a beautiful thing. And when a man can surrender and submit to that, and I say submit because it's a scary word for men, but that's what it is. From my perspective as a man, we have to submit to that moment and submit to that intuition and turn off our logical aspect of our mind and let the intuition lead. And it's a really beautiful thing, and it just kind of talks and speaks to the polarity of masculine and feminine relationship, whether it's platonic or not. We in our community have a saying called complementary polarities. So even if it's not a husband and wife relationship, if I have a coworker who's a female, we're in a complementary polarity relationship, and it really should be approached with the same sacredness. It's different than an intimate relationship, but it should be approached with the same care as you would a relationship with your wife, so to speak, for me. And I should see it as that relationship and gain the same things in the beauty and recognize the feminine strong points and complement her with my masculine strong points. And I think, I don't know what the culture is deeply in, the Middle East. I know a little bit. I know that there's an extreme imbalance from my understanding of the patriarchal dominance of man and the culture in some ways. But I think what's happening here in America, what I'm seeing is that there's a breakdown of men. And men are, it seems almost planned by the powers that be that men are being, I don't want to say created, but almost forced to be weaker and to abandon what many would consider traditional masculine qualities. And it's funny that we have to put these words in front of masculinity to qualify it, toxic masculinity or, whatever masculinity, but you don't hear about like femininity. I don't so much. I don't think of it, just femininity to me is a beautiful thing. So I don't qualify it with something. If a woman is really in her feminine, it's just femininity. But if a man's not in his masculinity, then to me he's just not masculine. He's not in his masculinity. If he's even if it's toxic masculinity, which to me is more of an imbalance, it's not, there is no masculinity. So toxic masculinity to me is the absence of masculinity, because masculinity in itself should be beautiful, just like femininity is a beautiful thing. And so to me, it's like there is no, the man hasn't come into his masculine nature, and a woman hasn't come into her feminine nature if she's not exhibiting that, just as a man isn't. And that relationship between man and woman is so important for the healing of this world. And it's so chronic that, it's one of the biggest problems to me of this world is the lack of harmony between man and woman. And I know you've spoken about that a little bit, and or maybe a lot.
This is my life's mission and my
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
This is what I'm here to do in this lifetime.
And I'm curious, like in the Middle East, I have my perceptions from what I see and what I read and what I take in through the media and through, conversations I've had from people who've grown up there. And it's not, parts of the Middle East, as you probably know more than me, are not conducive places for women to have a sense of freedom in any way. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I don't think so. But where you are, I know it's very progressive.
Where I am in Dubai is the best place in the world for women.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you the level of respect, love, even the laws that are made for women. For example, a company must have, on any board of directors, must have a woman on it. Any board of directors. I mean, women here, if you want to start a business, if you want to do whatever, you get a red carpet. So much more than the rest. Just, in any way, shape, or form. And protected, so much protection. What does the feminine need? Safety.
Yeah.
This is the safest country in the world. Not me saying this is, the numbers and the ratings out there. We're competing with Tokyo all the time, but that's about it. It is the safest place to live. And women look for safety. Am I safe? The work of polarity is my heart's work and my mission on earth. This is literally what feeds me, what I'm here to do, what lightens me up. I get all my codes and my downloads on this topic all the time. The planet right now, so it's not that I don't think it's the Middle East, because it's never just a region. Whatever happens energetically happens from on a tiny little scale to the biggest scale, so it's all scalable.
Yeah.
The polarity, masculine and feminine, are the engine of creation. So hence why we have the origin story of Adam and Eve. The masculine and the feminine are that engine that perpetuate that creation, that continues creating in this world. So on a spiritual level, the masculine and the feminine are the energies that create expansion of the soul. We need both. So that's the alignment of mind, heart, together expanding. So those two intelligences cut together. Then we have on the physical world a man and a woman, masculine, feminine, creating life, children, continuation of life. So masculine and feminine are those two energies, just two balls. And we don't have to think of man and woman, just two energies. You can color them in different colors, think of them in different ways. They're just two energies with two completely different properties. And together they are bringing creation into this world. And that's what they do. One has the properties of protection and providing. It is a more powerful, robust, that's the masculine, the man, stronger, faster, and a lot more logical, as in based on this intelligence mainly, and lives on this intelligence mainly. And the woman is gentler, softer, more connected to the spiritual realm, and listens to her heart. So the feminine is more chaotic. That's why we speak of Mother Nature as being, nature, wild, all over, and it lives from emotions and unpredictable and moves through seasons, etc. That's the feminine. Now, those two energies together are not just on the outside there when we think man and woman. They're right here. They're right here. And when the imbalance right here, meaning my heart, my feminine, and my masculine, which is this side here, when this marriage here is not happy, what do I get out? Pain, hurt. So you squeeze that person, and what do you get out of them? Bitterness, anger, selfishness, lack, etc. When this marriage here is happy, meaning my masculine is devoted to my feminine, they're happy. Everything is that's going on here is love. Whatever you squeeze out of that person is love. Now, when we correct this here, this inner union in people, what we will squeeze out of people is love, and the results we're going to see is going to be love,
Yeah.
it rippled in the world. So I do think that the origin story is also where the answer is to a lot of the pain, to most of the pain. It's the core of it. What is patriarchy? Patriarchy is not the toxic masculinity doesn't exist. It's not a thing.
Thank you.
Otherwise, there's also toxic femininity.
Yeah.
I mean, what we have is radical movements. We have people that go on the other side. Like feminism is a radical movement. It's a fanatic movement, if you would, of an imbalance that happened in the world. Whenever there's a minority that gets hurt, and women have been for centuries, that's undeniable, and dominated, etc., they create a radical movement, just like, you would have Black Americans in America back in the day. The radical movements are coming to say enough is enough. And that's what feminism is. Is it right? No, no radical movement is, no fanatic movement is, because it's not the answer. The answer is not to create more of the hurt.
Yeah.
Now, what is patriarchy? Patriarchy is masculine that is not embodied. That is all that it is. It's a little boy that has not matured into including his heart within his experience, within his body, within including his heart, and usually it comes from mother issues. So it's whatever that little boy experienced with the origin feminine in his life, the mother, has caused him to close up his heart, caused him to disconnect from his heart being her, the woman, Mother Earth, life, disconnect from life. And he lives in a numbness right here. He can't really enjoy life that much because he's disconnected from it. He's kind of going through life a little numb on a logical basis only, and doesn't know how to connect to the heart. So he meets a woman, and he can't connect to her because he can't do this to her because he hasn't done it to himself just yet.
Yeah.
That's what patriarchy is. It
Yeah.
isn't some kind of group of men that are angry and going after women. Just men that are disconnected from their heart and haven't surrendered to
Yeah.
their heart. Surrender is where we connect back, is understanding that the heart intelligence, just like Einstein said, is way beyond the mind's intelligence, and that the mind can't understand the heart's intelligence because it is way superior, and it is the great mystery of God, and that's where God dwells.
Yeah.
So,
You talk
yeah.
about energies of masculine and femininity, and in our culture here in our community, we study about circuitry. And again, it's just language, just different ways to talk about the same thing. But, there's the circuitry, and going up to the example of the Trinity, you have the Father, the Son, and the Mother. And a male should predominantly reside in the Son and Father circuitry. That doesn't mean they don't have mother circuitry, they don't have a feminine aspect. A female, a woman, should predominantly reside in the mother circuitry. That doesn't mean she can tap into the son-father circuitry as well, but she shouldn't reside in that. Just like, they should be in that gentle feminine nature. Now, when she has to confront her child or be stronger and say, don't touch the fire, you're going to burn, listen to me right now, stop that. That's kind of pulling more from that father circuitry, we call it, that energy of, but the father really should be the protector, like you said, should be the decision maker. Not that the woman doesn't make decisions at all, but a woman, like you said, is the intuition and the vision, and the male, the way I look at it, is the implementator of that, and helps implement the vision and the beauty,
Well,
because they have the decisiveness and the strength to do that. And that's the beauty of complementary polarities, what I was talking about earlier. And when you talked about Dubai being a very safe place for women, I think that's beautiful, and that's a culture we're trying to create here. We have created a very safe place for women, and we believe that leadership roles should be with a man and woman. So even if you're running a company, it shouldn't just be a man as a CEO. There should be a feminine aspect too. And in our community, whether it's someone who's in charge of the garden or the kitchen or whatever it may be, we try and have both, because then you have the best of both worlds, the balance of both.
Correct.
And circuitry is so off on this planet. And so that's how I look at it. When I see a man who's not embodied in his heart circuit, is not balanced, is lacking masculinity, it's an imbalance in that energy or circuitry. And I think in Western culture, and especially young men in the generation that's coming up in America over here, what I'm seeing is a complete imbalance. And it may sound harsh, to say weak, because that's a term that can be condescending. But essentially, there's a weakness, and I think that it's designed to be that way because you can control easier, and you can dominate easier the powers that be. And when men are stuck in indecision and weakness, there's no movement, there's no change, and they can't implement the beauty and the vision of the female. And women, I think, and I've had this conversation with many, many women, and this is something I'm passionate about too. And on my podcast, I've explored and I've done different podcasts about masculinity and relationships and men and women. And it's quite fascinating. The only thing I really know for sure is that there has to be healing. We all have different words and concepts
100%.
to approach, but there just has to be healing, and there has to be recognition and respect and love. Like, we have to love and cherish each other, and there's so much breakdown of each other right now, and qualities in this, and there's just, it's really low consciousness is what it is. There's a lack of spiritual wisdom and intention and graciousness in how we approach our relationships and how we conduct ourselves, and value. We in Western culture, there's such a lack of value on women, in my opinion, and in the media, they're made into sex objects, and there's not a mature, a spiritual and mature recognition of what a woman has to offer the world, to offer the man, to offer, the family. They're not just a housewife. They're not
Correct.
just a mother raising their children, which is also one of the most important things, to be a mother and raise children. But they're more than that too. And when we try and put people in little boxes and, this is your lane and this is what you do, it doesn't work. But what does work is also understanding roles. Like, we do have roles, and we've talked about, you've mentioned some of those roles as a man being a protector and a provider, and a woman, and I think we've kind of, humanity's attempt to seem progressive, we've kind of abandoned traditional roles that are very important for the progress of society and humanity and the structure of how we thrive as a human species, really. I mean, and how we're
Yeah.
going to survive on this planet, because when you break down the roles of man and women, you're breaking down the very structure of how we ascend as a human race on the planet. And that's why we see, a lot of the world's problems and the bombs, these ballistic missiles going off, in Israel right now and anywhere else in the world, if people could realize that it actually all links back to consciousness and the lack of respect and love and care, and it's all interrelated to a lack of spiritual perspective in our circuitry as men and women. You don't easily go to war with someone you love and respect. And if we had that consciousness to love and respect all of humanity in a certain way, we would really conduct ourselves. That gets really complex. I mean, what's happening in the Middle East is
It's all on the
centuries
skill.
old,
It's the skill.
centuries
That's
of
the thing.
conditioning. So it's a huge subject, but
It is. It is. It is the skill. That's we speak about the war right now, and it's whatever happens on the inside of us. So when the energies are off balance inside, that's what's happening on the outside.
exactly.
As above, so below.
Yep.
This is, as within, so without, and that's how we experience the world. What's happening in Lebanon, Palestine, Israel, all of the conflicts, as well, Ukraine, and and so many other places around the world, it is exactly that. And there is that imbalance, and there is exactly what you spoke of, which is um, a lack of value of understanding what heart intelligence is, which is the feminine.
Yep.
So when the world is led by mind intelligence, and mind intelligence is the physical world, because the mind is designed to execute, structure, plan, and build in the physical world, in the 3D. Her vision, and her vision is created in the 5D. A woman creates from the womb space, and that space is where she creates a vision. She dreams. It is in the abstract. And a man, the masculine, grounds it into this reality to create it. That's why he builds hospitals, schools, for her life, continuation of
Yeah.
life. Now, when a man is not devoted to her vision, because he doesn't trust her, he doesn't trust the heart space, the heart intelligence, doesn't trust that and just trust the mind space, we create a world of separation. We
Yeah.
create a world of the man is now is disconnected from her, so he is not here in devotion to her dream. He is here in devotion to himself, by himself in the world, and creates his little groups. There's a lot of isolation, a lot of loneliness, a lot of addiction, the world of the void because I am not connected. And a lot of men suffer from that, which is the big old void that I'm going to fill with this, whether it's women, addictions, whatever it is, because I'm trying to feel, but I'm disconnected. I'm disconnected from source. Now, this is what we see on the grand scale. The fact that we have wars in 2024 is insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
We should be well beyond that.
Is insane. At this level of, advancement. Here I am in Dubai speaking to you in Arizona on a screen, and we're having a conversation and connecting. How are we having wars at this time and age? It's insane.
Yeah.
Or can we not communicate? We've been able to build the most incredible devices like the one we're speaking on right now, and we haven't been able to figure out how to communicate and resolve conflict. Yes, because that's what's happening right here in the world energetically still.
Yeah.
And that is where we need to solve things. He and she need to do this.
Yeah.
Always.
Amen.
Yeah.
It's really part of the healing of the whole world. And when millions of people can start to see that, and that the macro affects the micro, that the micro affects the macro, like you said, what's happening within here translates to without. So the conflict within ourselves and the inability to have that healing, even with our sister or our mother or our wife or our coworker, translates to war in the world. People don't realize that it's all connected, and that connection consciousness is really so important. I wanted to ask you about, your studies of philosophy. Who are some of your favorite philosophers, and how have they shaped and kind of guided your perceptions and philosophy on life in the world?
Rumi, so I am very much in
Rumi,
the Sufi. Yeah, I love the Sufi writings. Shams Tabriz as well, who's fantastic in his writings. A lot of poetry, a lot of romance. The expression is very feminine, which I love, because these are men that embrace that heart of theirs. So it's not dry philosophy like you would say some of the incredible French philosophers of enlightenment, beautiful things, but it's a lot more dry, a lot more direct. But I think, so those are some of my favorites. Of course, the great Greeks, old writings. And again, mythology for me is another, it's that place between religion and philosophy. There's a space called mythology. And it's got all these stories where, it doesn't claim to be true. So this is the thing about mythology, but it has the same teachings and the same stories and the same meaning and messages and wisdom that religion and philosophy have. So the way we deliver the truth when we're plugged to it and we get glimpses of it, and that's when we get those moments of enlightenment, those light bulbs moment. People for millennia have been expressing and communicating those beautiful truths through stories and fables and songs and poetry and art and all sorts of things to enrich us. So that's what I love about philosophy. It's the space that allowed people back. That probably why we don't have a lot of philosophers now is because we have a lot more freedom of expression.
Yeah.
That's cool, but we definitely are living in the age of the most freedom of expression we had. But at the time, they didn't. So philosophy was really quite brave when people were writing controversial things, knowing that their life could be at risk, it really was an act of rebellion, which now we don't experience in the world so much in most places. Of course, there are places, but mostly. And people can, just express themselves daily 100 times a day if they want by posting whatever they want, their thoughts and ideas and their words and their feelings. So philosophy is who we are.
Yeah.
Philosophy is who we are. Philosophy is really the expression of the thought and communicating with another, communicating our thoughts. And we get to do this all the time now, which is so beautiful.
One of my favorite mystics and poets is Tagore. And one of my favorite quotes of his, just wanted to read you, is he said, "I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy."
Correct.
It just really captures so much, that service
all
is joy. Yeah, it captures everything almost. That's just the essence of life.
So the Hindus, they've got Ram. Ram means servant of in Hindu religions. In Islam, there is Abdul. So, when you hear Abdul something, which means also servant of, most religions speak, and all religions really understand that the purpose of life is not to self-serve, but to be of service.
Yep.
And that in serving the one, the collective, is where we find that fulfillment, where we find that fullness, and find it as in we're not filling it. It's already there, but we get to remember it. We get to experience it because it's there. And how do I access that fullness that's already there? Is in that service.
Yeah.
It is not in serving myself.
And, that ties into such a cultural shift. This whole concept of self-love, to me, I find actually kind of sad, because we live in a culture, in a society, in a world where we have to pursue self-love. Like, when did we start hating ourselves? When it was even a concept. Was it a concept, 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, where you had to spend time loving yourself? But the world beats you down. People beat you down. Whatever's happening on the external, you lose that self-confidence, that self-respect. But what's really sad to me is that these individuals, or any of us, I'm not me personally, because I'm super blessed with my life to be surrounded by many loving people, but many people don't feel any love. So they're left with just loving themselves. But that can lead to a slippery slope of selfishness. Like what happened to service? You can really get your confidence by being other-oriented, and selflessness, to me, is a much higher spiritual concept, forgetting oneself and serving others, because in that subconscious service, well, it's very conscious service, but what happens subconsciously is then you fill your cup. You when you're helping others, you're getting that confidence, you're feeling that love. And, when people are on Instagram and they're taking a photo of them having a margarita on the beach and they're saying self-care and self-love, I just think it's kind of comical. Not that there's anything wrong with needing to have time, to recharge and disconnect and have time to yourself. Not at all. But it's like the fact that we live in a world where we have to qualify it and put a label on it and justify it is so funny to me. I mean, sad, really. And we're not, I just think it's funny, the concept of self-love.
When people are kind of, living in that unhappiness, which means that fullness is not felt, is not experienced, or we're disconnected from that fullness. We're gonna try and figure out where it is, and then the physical world, this reality that we live in, is incredibly good at giving you real quick little hits that will make you feel that it's almost doing it, but then it's not. And that's what we call an addiction, right? So you keep going back for more. So now darkness gets to sell you a lot of things that way. It keeps you coming all the time by making you believe that you need that for you to feel. Now, self-love, what is self-love? Is destroying of the self-concept If understand, and that's the layers, is shedding all of those layers through our life, getting rid of the self concept that I have, that I am this
Mm-hmm.
thing and I'm important and I need to do that. The most important thing that I am is a vessel that serves. I mean, is there any higher than position than that? There isn't. There is nobody that's at a higher position than that. So if I can understand that I am this incredible vessel that has a mission, a purpose, a service, and my only damn job is to make this vessel as translucent as possible so that it can pour through, so it's not clogged by fears and all sorts of doubts and all sorts of ego built concepts that keep me from being the unclogged, unblocked channel for all of that to pour through, to create through me. And when it creates through us, that's the fulfillment. That is the fulfillment we feel when we are creating, and we know it when we are really creating and doing. What we are in is in love, because we are one with our Creator. We are in love, and when we experience, we always want to go back there to those moments, and those moments. If you ask anybody who's experiencing that one moment, you'll ask them, "What do you want right now, or what do you need?" They say, "Nothing."
Yeah.
Nothing. I am full.
Well,
Nothing.
Jesus
Um,
said it. He said, "The greatest among you is the servant of all."
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And that's what it is. But it's very hard to get people to buy into that, because you
Very.
got to experience it to know it. That's why a lot of people go into psychedelics or all sorts of things, because you've got to experience it to understand it. Again, you do not believe in God, in source. You either know God or you don't. And when you know God, there's no turning back, because you understand what that is and
Yeah.
how it feels. Now, if you speak to a bunch of people who are still haven't experienced that, so they may believe in God, they may not at all, or be completely, atheists, or go into the world and say, the world is all about me building and getting more things and being the number one, whatever. The ego's so strong that whatever you're going to try and communicate to this person is going to be resisted to, pushed away, and hated, because it's triggering what all that I am right now needs to go, needs to die. What do you mean I'm nobody? I've spent my life trying to become somebody. I
Yeah.
can't be nobody. What do I do with this somebody that I built? What do I do with it? Bury it? No. So it is a complex, and usually, but the soul's got its own workings of leading people to that burial space where they gotta lay down their self-concept to do what they came to do, in their own way. So
Yeah. Well, and people, we're all responsible to ascend and to grow and to change and to become better. And that takes work and it takes pain. And people are terrified of pain and discomfort and doing all the things you're talking about. Another great quote from a Sufi poet is Gibran. And he said, "Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding." And there's been times in my life where that's really resonated, where I found myself in an emotional turmoil and pain, and I was trying to blame others or look at, exterior circumstances and situations that were causing it. But when I sat in stillness and prayer and contemplation, that quote would come to me, and I realized, no, it's actually that my understanding and that shell is breaking and I'm expanding. It's a painful process because I'm getting out of my comfort zone. And what I think or what I thought was true, or how I conducted myself, or even my philosophy on life sometimes has completely changed. And that process can be painful because it's like a rebirthing and the cleaning out to purify, my vessel, my body, my spirit, my soul, to be pure and to help people. And that process, is all I can say is it can be painful. But people are terrified of pain, and they'll do anything to numb it, to escape it, to run from it, and to just stay mediocre, frankly, and not dive deep into the depth of consciousness and who they can become and who God wants them to become. We're created. I really believe in the Urantia book, a book, a revelation that I study, talks about God creates each individual with a unique and beautiful personality. And we have to ascend towards that personality and that blueprint you mentioned and fulfill that blueprint. It isn't just like we have it instantly. When we're born on the planet, in some sense we do. And there's a duality to that. As a child, like you said, a child already has it, but then we lose it. So then we have to work back towards it, and fulfill that blueprint, that destiny purpose. We're predestined to have and to do things in our souls and find our destiny purpose. And I think that's a way on this planet that the negative forces and the powers that be, I don't want to necessarily say the devil, because that's kind of an archaic way, but in some sense, the devil, the dark forces want to keep people out of their destiny purpose, not fulfilled. And so people who should be singers and artists and musicians are flipping burgers at McDonald's, in a job they hate and stuck in it. And when a soul is not actualized and not happy and not fulfilled and actualized on a spiritual, emotional, mental level, they're going to be not just unhappy, but they're going to be controllable and they're going to be weak, But when someone comes into their being, into their purpose, into their understanding and knows who they are and starts finding their destiny purpose and their talents and starts activating those and working in those, they become activated. The best way I can put it, activated, and it's a whole different level.
That's exactly it. That's it. It's exactly that. It's an activation of the blueprint. I think we're born. Nothing is a mistake. Everything that is done by the grand design of our Creator, our Source, is absolutely perfect as it is wherever we're born, with where we're raised. The forgetting of our purity, as you say, is part of it. Part of it, because in that forgetting, it gives us new codes now that will allow us to expand in other ways. So it's all part of it. Now, the devil is a correct word. Now, of course it's an archaic, and it's a character that is built. We have in religion, and we have in all sorts of different depictions. But the devil represents what? Represents the opposition. That's what it is. It's just the opposition. And in all religions, it is the opposition. It's the one character that said, "I oppose you, God, and I shall do my own thing, separate myself from the one and the all, and I shall go this way, and I will have followers that will come with me." Sounds a lot to me like the ego. And that's what I think that is. The side of darkness is the ego, is the separateness, is our fears, is our mind that convinces us that we are above heart intelligence, above creation, above the rest, above the one, and that we will create our own world for our own service and for ourselves, myself, self-serving. And that's what that side is.
Yeah, that sounds just like the Lucifer Manifesto. Have you ever heard of this book called the Urantia book?
No.
So it's a book that we study in our community, and it's what I study. It's over 2,000 pages long. It's a vast epical revelation, and it started coming to this planet in 1911 through an anonymous sleeping prophet. Well, people think he's anonymous. We know who he is. And it wasn't published until 1955. It took many, many years. And anyways, it talks about the Lucifer rebellion. And 200,000 years ago on this planet, Lucifer, who was a high celestial being in charge of a lot of stuff, basically, I'm just really saying it in simple form here, said, "You know what, everybody, there's a faster way to get to the blueprint, so to speak. There's a faster way to get to paradise. God's plan is too slow. It's too hard work. Do whatever you want, unbridled liberty. You're already pretty much there. You don't have to do the work. God, you already pretty much are God. And just do your own thing, And that's why this planet is what we call a fallen world. That's why there's the problems that we see on our planet, because humanity and human beings got impatient with the plan, the divine plan that was given for the natural progression of spiritual growth, and started just doing their own thing. Now, the repercussions of that manifesto, the Lucifer Manifesto, is the result of what we see in the world today. The hatred, the war, like the fact that you said that we're having war in 2024 is insanity. Like, why? We should have evolved way past this, but we're still primitive. Man is still primitive in consciousness in so many ways that we're not too far off from the Neanderthals beating each other on the head with clubs.
Correct.
No, we really aren't.
That's funny, but that's true. That is very true. I like that. I like that image. I'm keeping it now. Just a couple different flags though on both sides. It's just it is that. See, I like this interpretation of Lucifer because it's a very beautiful image as well. I do think it's always been, and again, when we speak of polarity, creation, our creator works through polarity. Our world, this reality that we live in, is created through that's the engine. It's the polarity. You've got dark, light, you've got feminine, masculine. We've got all sorts of polarities that are the how the world works. That's the yin and the yang, right? And when
Yep.
we think of our this planet that we live in, so this life that exists, a lot of what happens is the side of darkness, or Lucifer, or Satan, or whatever we want to call it. So the dark side is just another force. It's just another energy. And
Yep.
there are two energies, and both are needed to balance themselves out. So what we're trying to do here is this spirit that has entered our bodies and formed into these souls with their blueprint of what they need to do in this planet, are living a physical experience in this form that we are the body, and we are experiencing the world, which is a physical world. So we've got a 5D and a 3D kind of there sitting side by side, and they're trying to merge, and that's the tensions that we're trying to figure out and feel. And when they're trying to merge, what happens in any two parties trying to come together? Conflict, and one is trying to dominate the other. And
Yeah.
that's what I see the world, and the conflicts of what we feel on the inside, the conflicts of what we see on the outside. Is it going to be the 3D, and the 3D is fighting really hard to win, the form is fighting really hard to win? It's instead of going to prayer or spending time doing something that's healthy for myself, I could just reach out for the bottle. That's the other side of me that's fighting, or I could just reach out for the whatever. And that conflict that's inside is the conflict that we see on the outside. Is 3D and 5D are struggling to merge. The form, the body, the material, the physical, and the spirit world are struggling to merge and become harmonious in this world.
Yeah.
So that's what I see and experience and kind of pick up on. And because it's literally what we experience on the inside. No
Yeah.
matter how, awakened, connected, conscious, we get lost. It's like I go sometimes from, you said Neanderthal, but I have Neanderthal moments where I'm like, for 5 minutes, I'm like, what is going on? Who is this?
Yeah.
And
We
that
all
is the
do.
human
Yeah.
experience. That is the human experience. That is
Absolutely.
where it feels like a second ago I was up there hanging out in God, with God, in love. And I just went ape mode on myself right now. What was that? Why am I feeling this way?
Yeah, it's
That's
pretty
the human
amazing how we can
experience.
be up here and then
Yeah,
come down here so quick,
correct.
The human
Because those are the
experience
two
is very,
forces.
it's messy, yeah. But that's
Yeah, so those are
consciousness,
the two forces. And the more we get acquainted with those two forces, the more we stop projecting one, fearing one, or pushing against from one, or desiring one, because that's all part of it as well. And the more we just allow them, we surrender into that human experience and kind of start dancing with them and laugh with them. So we come at it from a space of observer, of witness, of saying, isn't God great when I'm a Neanderthal? And isn't God great when I'm absolutely on point, right there, connected and centered? Isn't God great all the time, always? And that's kind of what it is for me. And
Well, that's
we
a
can
really,
learn
really
dancing
good
a little
point. Yeah. I mean, a true spiritualist and a true godly person is going to praise God when they're on the yacht living life or when they're in a cell, in the lowest point. God doesn't change. He's still great. And true spiritually connected people who know God. I think of Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in a prison, beautiful man. And he praised God every day that he was in that prison for 27 years. Instead of, God didn't change to him, and he was stuck in a prison cell. Pretty powerful, like, testimony. And when he came out and was finally freed, because of his spiritual power, he earned the respect of thousands of people, and he was able to create forgiveness and healing with his program between the black Africans and the Afrikaners, the Dutch and the white Africans who'd come to South Africa and basically dominated and taken over through violence and murder. But he created the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And he literally sat down, the families of the South African blacks and the Afrikaners, whites, who had murdered their own parents or family members, and they physically sat down together and forgave each other, and healing, powerful stuff. And so it can happen. It can happen in the Middle East. It happened in South Africa on many levels. And yeah, I just think that's so profound. Like God is great no matter where you are. Our
No matter
perception
what,
might
no matter
change.
what.
We might be in rags in the mud, but God hasn't changed. He's still great.
And the reason God requires faith is because what we're equipped with in this dimension cannot comprehend God.
Yeah.
And we are trying constantly to understand God through intellect, which is impossible. It's as if I was trying to measure the space between me and the stars with a plastic ruler. It's ridiculous. So we can't understand God through the mind. We cannot understand God through, and the closest we're getting to is with science. What is science but a discipline to try and understand the creator through logic?
Yeah.
And that's why it has its limits. But that's what science has been since the beginning of science, is trying to understand what is this creation, what is, through all sorts of different tools and all sorts of different, measurements and math and all sorts of things. So we're not here to understand God.
No.
God is to be trusted, faith. That's it. And once we experience God, we know. It's like, now I see. I see that the design is perfect and there isn't a leaf in the wrong place and there isn't an ant in the wrong place. And everything and everyone has purpose. So do I, so do you. And my only job is to stay as unclogged, as purely a vessel, so that I can just allow for creation to create through me. And that takes faith.
I like that.
That takes faith and trust.
You've used the term unclogged a few times. I like that. I'm going to have to start using that. I got to get unclogged. It's like, because we get clogged up, man. We get clogged up.
It's like, it's like a pipe and you got all sorts of things in it, fears, doubts,
Yep.
all anger, all that. Once the pipe's unclogged, the water's flowing.
That's
We're all
right.
drinking. Everybody's happy. Abundance.
I want to read you a quote from the Uranus book that kind of hits on a lot of the points we've been talking about. It's pretty cool. It says, next to the supreme satisfaction of worship is the exhilaration of philosophy. Never do you climb so high or advance so far that there do not remain 1,000 mysteries which demand the employment of philosophy in an attempted solution. And I've always thought that's a really cool take on philosophy, because you'll never find it. It's just the philosophy is deployed to try and understand the mysteries of the universe, and it's okay that we're never going to understand everything. We're not going to understand God. We're not going to understand the mysteries of the universe. But it sure is fun to explore it through philosophy and try to and come up with. My wife always tells me.
But isn't that like the beauty? That's the beauty. I always feel that the most beautiful things in the world are not to be understood.
Yeah.
And I think I understood that one time when I spoke to my dad, and my parents are a funny bunch. I spoke to my dad, and he was looking at my mom, and we were talking about something, and he said, "You see, your mom, for example, she's wild. She's cray-cray. I don't need to understand her. I just love her."
Yeah.
And that gave me a whole other perspective on, how we don't have to go through the world thinking, unless I understand something, then it is true. Is there another way for truth to be without me understanding it with my logical mind? That how is it that we would think that my mind, this thing that is created by God, is going to understand God through the mind? It's impossible. It's not how it works. That's not how it works.
Well, the
And there is
finite
another
finite
intelligence.
mind will never grasp the infinite.
We will not. We will not. That's the mystery of it. And we're not here to do that.
Yeah.
We're not here to do that. We attempt with our all sorts of different ways. We have clues in nature as well that get us to connect. I think that's why nature is so powerful. What does plant medicine do? It does exactly that, which is it takes you there. It gives you that experience of experiencing the oneness and God in different ways, our creator. Can you experience all of it? No, that's why no two experiences are the same.
Yeah.
And they're always different. So our goal is to understand that there's this incredible, incredible creator that has created all of that, and it is be so complex and so perfect. And to experience that perfection and to see it, once we start seeing it and putting the lens on the perfection, even in the, especially in the imperfect moments, on a mental level, on our ego level. And whenever I go through a struggle, I have a sentence that I keep repeating in myself, almost like a little mantra. I don't do mantras, but this is the one that I always go through, which is, especially when I'm struggling. So when I'm in darkness, Neanderthal, as you said, and I'm like, why is this happening? You know, when you go into the victimhood and why is this happening? And this, I don't understand, and I'm scared, and I drop into, don't you see how perfect this is? And I keep repeating that. And I keep repeating that for days, weeks, hours, if that's just hours, until I can see how perfect it is. Because there is the perfection in it. It's just that in darkness, I'm not able to see how this unfortunate situation is perfectly perfect for this moment, for what's going on in my life. And it's just me seeking, trying to change this lens to let's try and figure out how perfect this is. I need to be able to see that, because I can't see it right now. God, help me see it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that
One of my father's quotes is "Let the perfect happen,"
yeah,
and that's kind of profound, because we get in the way often of letting the perfect happen. You know, we're trying to control, we're trying to dominate, we're trying to change our own reality, we're resisting it, but just let the perfect happen. And that's
very true.
you can sit back and contemplate that one for a while. It's really a good one.
I love that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to circle back to the men's work. You were talking about the heart and stuff. I'm very passionate about men's, I call it men's work, but working with men to tap into that heart, and to become better men. And what does that mean? And I recently put on a men's development camp or men's retreat called True North.
Okay.
And the concept of True North, that anybody needs to have a true north. The creator is the true north, and finding that true north. And the 4 pillars of the true north concept is direction, purpose, action, resilience. One has to have direction. They have to find their purpose. Then they have to take action. And then they have to have resilience to withstand all of the obstacles and how hard it is to pursue that purpose. But one of the beautiful things, we had this men's retreat that I put on in Sedona in July. And it was an incredible experience to get 20 men together. And some of these men were ex-military, men who've seen a lot of stuff. Diverse group of men, ages from 55 to 23, I think was the youngest. Professionals, doctors, just a great group. All different types of men. And we had some incredible experiences. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Native American Purification Lodge. I don't know if they have anything like that in the Middle East and the tribes over there, but basically it's a lodge that you go into, small, round, burning hot rocks. You pour water on it, steam, and you suffer basically, and you purify. It's a very uncomfortable process. Yeah. And it's something that men have a hard time doing, suffering and surrendering. But what's beautiful to me is it's like the womb. The lodge is like a womb. You're going into this dark womb-like thing, and you tap into that feminine, and you have to surrender. You can't escape. It's hot. The steam's going there, and all you can do is just surrender to that process. And there was amazing cathartic release, like sobbing and connection and heart release and purity. And it was life-changing for these men, and including me. And I've done many of these lodges since I was a teenager. And, not every time do I have like a deep, necessarily cathartic, mind-blowing experience, but often I do. And in this one I did, and others did too. And I just felt like it was such a beautiful marriage of like feminine and masculine. And there was no women involved though. But the reason why it was beautiful was that, to me, the lodge was representing kind of the womb, going back into that womb. We're even kind of sitting in the fetal position because we're really tight in there, and we're kind of sitting like curled up like a baby almost, and you got no option but to just go within and surrender. And that process, there's no plant medicine involved, there's no drugs, there's no nothing. The process alone completely alters your state and your heart and your mind, and you go into the, it just opens you up to a beautiful experience, and the healing can take place, and it was just so wonderful to see men tap into that heart, and then we had, of course, a lot of other activities, and we had breath work, and that was the very end.
Yeah.
And it was very cool because we brought in a woman to guide and facilitate the breath work. And I can't tell you how refreshing it was. Like, we were this manly camp for like 4 or 5 days, and we're doing hard things. We're carrying weight, and we're hiking, and we're working out, and we're doing self-defense classes, and we're doing deep spiritual discussions and these heart connection talks. And, we had a full spectrum of activities, but it was very masculine, a lot of testosterone, a lot of energy. And then the breath work was just incredible. This woman came in and guided us through this breath work, which was one of the more powerful experiences I've had in my life.
Breathwork is incredible.
Again, no plant medicine, no drugs, no nothing, just breath. And she calls it connecting with the creator. And she was very tapped into the creator and kept bringing us back to that. And man, it was incredible. Being in a room with 20 men, like just the shells just breaking open, the hearts just wide open. Like it was it was stunning, and I was thinking, man, if we could do this with thousands of men, and if men really did the work and allowed themselves to go into these experiences, the healing, because you leave that experience a changed man, no matter what. It's incredible.
100%. But it's happening around the world. Men are rising at the moment. The masculine is rising.
Absolutely,
at the moment.
yeah.
This is the witchy stuff I'm speaking about. But
Yeah.
the energies has been a couple of portals, and that's what it's been about. It's been about the masculine rising. And the masculine rising isn't just in the man physical form. It is the masculine in general, the masculine in women, the masculine in the man, the masculine, so healthy masculine. And the all of these practices, and I love men camps or
Yeah.
these kind of sacred spaces where men go. I think they're brilliant. And they're brilliant because I've been to a couple, and I've seen people come out of a couple and it completely transformed, because it's, and the woman can see in a man the king that he is, but until he can see that king, she is speaking to a wall. There's no point. There's no enough love that's going to bring that king out.
Yep.
Until he sees that king. Men need men to heal. Men need to be held by other men. Men need to be in spaces where they challenge themselves so they can experience how incredibly powerful they are.
Yeah.
And that means they need to go through experiencing their heart and letting their heart break, and they're letting their heart feel all of it, the whole spectrum. And when they're able to do that, because they're the masculine and they're the strong force out there, the powerful, protector, provider, container. When they're able to do that with them, they come back to the women like the big, kings that they are, and are able to do that for the feminine, to be all of that she is, and trust him to be there as well and not run.
Yep.
So I always like to say that the power of the man is in his staying. The power of the feminine is in her walking. And a man is truly powerful when he is that strongest tree in the field that does not get blown away by the winds. Whatever comes at it is going to stay strong, no matter the challenges, no matter what, is going to be able to face them, figure them out, and not run and abandon. And I think women can concur on that a big thing that women face with men is men who run too soon, and on the other side, we've got women who stay too long where they shouldn't be staying too long. So that's kind of the energies. And when a woman really protects her energy so that it doesn't get dimmed and oppressed, etc., by a man who is unhealthy, by a man who's probably in his weaker, and in his feminine, and she's able to walk away intact and keep that beauty with her, she's able to protect that and move towards somewhere else, as opposed to become wounded herself and go wounding others. And if she has children, wound the children and hurt the children unintentionally, but that's what's happening if she's been wounded. And men are strong when they stay, when they stay. It's like, don't abandon your team, don't abandon your tribe, don't abandon your people, don't abandon your kingdom.
Yeah.
You can't be building kingdoms and starting kingdoms left, right, and center and keep running away because, oh, that happened and it was difficult. Somebody else did the same thing. You can't bear the competition. Whatever it is that men deal with.
Yeah.
And rise. That's the challenge. Rise. Keep rising. Keep rising every day. Go out there and remind yourself of your power through the challenges. Come back home saying, I've got it. I've got it.
Yep.
You know.
No, that's really good. Really beautiful. You know, you have what I perceive to be a lot of wisdom and insight and depth. And from my experience, and I've had hundreds of conversations with people, in my own experience, people don't get that unless they've experienced some suffering or there's been some type of catalyst in their life that made them reevaluate things or look deeper or pause and reflect and, you know, get to that, basically that point. And I'm just curious, in your life, if you could share, if you're comfortable, was there experiences or things or pivotal moments when you were younger, or what kind of set you on your journey of exploration to find these philosophical viewpoints that really make a lot of sense to me and align with how I see things as well? Because not everybody has that. Some people, they don't have it at all. And again, most people who have it, it's because they've suffered and they've gone to the depths. And then, you know, there's usually something in life that hit them and then they rebuild themselves. I'm just curious what your process has been with that.
I was having this conversation on a previous podcast, and the interviewer was saying, you know, I watched a show where all the psychopaths and the crazy criminals who are in jail all had difficult childhoods, and that's what they have in common. And I said, well, on the other side, the greats as well have that in common, because at some point, there was a choice to be made. Either I'm going to perpetuate the pain that I grew up in, or I'm going to make sure nobody ever experiences the pain that I grew up in. So that's kind of what splits them. So, you know, you could be Ted Bundy or you could be Tony Robbins on the other side, or, you know, and have the same kind of hurtful childhood. Or we all come from all sorts of hurt dysfunctions. I only know what I've experienced and what I grew up in, so I can't compare to anybody else. Was it difficult? Yes, I remember being a child feeling alone emotionally a lot, feeling quite kind of, there's not understood, nobody gets me, I'm absolutely isolated, and I felt terrified to be isolated. Teenager, super angry teenager, which was a lot of the patriarchy that was kind of building up there, and that's where I lost myself in music, singing, and philosophy. And when the girls, I guess, had you know, Backstreet Boys posters on their rooms, I had Socrates, and I had quotes of like my philosophers have been Leiterman, all the French Diderot and Voltaire, and that so I was getting lost in that because it was finding. That's what art does. Art gives you a voice, gives you, you're seen, makes you feel seen and heard, and that's why we go to art. So I was angry, I guess. I always felt misunderstood, limited, not free. I don't generational as well. My father was from that generation, the previous generation of men who, you know, 50-year career somewhere, and that's the most important thing, quite disconnected from his heart, not much, can't really be there for you emotionally. My mother had her own set of aliveness, I'll call it, extreme, intense aliveness. And you know, I was kind of this kid who was, you know, my brother is not like me, though he's got a completely different lifestyle. So I don't know what it is. I can't say. All I know is I have pieces that I wrote when I was a child that I found recently. My parents moved and sent me my old diaries and old boxes and stuff. And I was kind of really surprised that I was an 8-year-old writing about ego and soul and spirit and God. And so somehow I must have been really connected. I must have been really tapped in to be able to see. And I was writing how I could see that my mother was, you know, there was the white and the black in her, and they were not, you know, and I could see all of these kind of things. Why? I don't know. Did I come with the ability to see and empathy, or maybe not? probably I felt so alone and isolated that I turned to source. It's probably that's what it is, because I speak a lot to God in my diaries when I was a teenager and a kid, starting at 8 years old. So I painted a lot of things and I drew a lot of things, which are incredibly, I mean, mind-boggling for me at this age to see. And I was like, who is this girl and where is she? I mean, I don't remember her. She was there and she was doing those things. So I think it was that. It was probably God wanted me, because loneliness was the biggest one. I was very depressed and very sad. And I
Yeah.
guess in that loneliness and isolation, um, that's where we meet God. That's where we find God. That's where we connect there. I mean, we connect to self. We have this saying in Arabic that if you find yourself alone, it's God wants a meeting with you. So that's the highest form of love you can receive. And that's true. But I didn't know that as a kid, obviously. I just
Yeah.
think in retrospect, that's probably what happened. Um, did I have a bad upbringing, as bad as most people? You know, daddy's absent emotionally, physically as well, because he's working off season, going there, and that he's an oil man. Mommy's kind of got all her emotional needs not met, so the kids are kind of filling that gap for her, which isn't really their job. I mean, that's kind of the story of most, of a lot of people from my
Yeah.
generation. Was it better or worse? I don't know. Um, but yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all of it, for what I couldn't understand, what I still don't understand, for what I can understand, and mostly for all of it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's what we spoke about. It's the design, the perfection of the design, what you said, Dad spoke about, which I like very much.
Well, thank you for
The
sharing that.
perfection.
That's really beautiful. Yeah. I mean, that's
Thank you.
so. Just a few more little questions here, just back down to earth. Maybe slightly boring stuff, but in Dubai, you have a chocolate shop, and do you have a restaurant too?
Yes, so I've got a chocolate brand. Ooh, that we're talking about the chocolate. Good. So I built a chocolate brand 6 years ago, and it's high fine chocolate. I love cocoa. I think I always say chocolate, coffee, and music. I'm happy.
That
I
sounds
you
good.
united
That's
that. I'm
perfect.
good. I'm good to go. Yeah, so I love chocolate and cocoa bean. I've opened up 3 stores and I've got a cafe as well. So between Abu Dhabi and Dubai, both of
Okay,
them in different cities. Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a restaurant. Our family had a restaurant for 4 years called Food for Ascension Cafe.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was my father's concept. You know, he's a visionary. He's started many things, but I've always, we'll start it again. We were kind of ahead of our time, I think, in the city that we were in Tucson here when we opened it, and I don't think the consciousness was there to appreciate it enough. But it was 100% farm to table, locally sourced.
Wow.
Pretty much everything was sourced within 150 miles, besides a few things, and highest quality or 100% organic. I mean, you can't find that anywhere now. And we did well, but it was just so much work. We were just a slave to the restaurant. Because we were creating more than just a restaurant. We wanted to create almost like a temple. An experience, a connection where people come in there and they're transported. And the consciousness and the wellness and the connection between the earth and the food and our bodies and health, and that's why we called it Food for Ascension, and really understanding that. And I was intrigued when I read that you had the chocolate and the rest cafe, and I just love we'll have it again someday too, but I just love it's nurturing and nourishing people, through food. And it's a wonderful art, and helping people and creating that family and that connection. And it's something that I
It
miss,
is
but we'll get it
community.
back.
It is. It's community. I had this incredible mentor when I was in my younger years. Older lady, I think, who represented quite a parental figure for me. And she said to me, so whenever I dream of a space, I said, she's like, but what do you want to do, Rima? And I was 20 at the time, and I said, I want this land and this space where people come and they experience all these things and they reconnect and they heal and they whatever and da 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 da. Da. And I kept going, and she said, Rima, every time we dream of a space on the outside, it's the space that we want to become on the inside. And that kind of flipped my brain around at the time. And I always looked at spaces that way. And I always thought, hey, it's so true. And she said, you want to become the space where people, when people come through you, they heal and they connect back to source and find their empowerment and see themselves. And I was like, yes. And with food and cafes and restaurants, I think it's the same thing. It's this space of nurturing, of love, of community. So, most people who say I dream of a cafe or having my own cafe. A lot of the times it's exactly that. They're saying, I want community. I want healthy, loving community. I want that feeling I got when I was a kid around the table and there was mommy and daddy and everybody and we would eat and would laugh. And that feeling, what is that? I want that. And there's no better way than to do it around the bountiness of Mother Nature and food and nourishing people. And, kind of, that's the welcome, that's the love. That's us sharing our love with them. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Very true.
So with your chocolate, do you source from farmers and like directly, or do you have a process there? Have you explored I know
So
most cacaos in South
the factory's
America.
in France.
Yeah.
Yeah, the factory's in France, and then the factory sources from 12 different plantations. So lots in Africa, some in South America, and Vietnam as well. And the latest one is Cameroon in Africa. So that was the first plantation and first cocoa to come out of Cameroon. Beautiful flavor. And the factory was started kind of a little project for them there, where they're all very small plantations, but they're artisanal, properly done. The fermentation process is done properly, and they've kind of started a little school as well for the people that are joining and their kids, so that they can work during the day and kind of go to school afterwards. So yeah, it's always like how much further can we kind of reach, and what else can we do here, and what else can we do here, as opposed to just getting the different components we need, but just saying how do we get and give everywhere we go, and not just in money, And I think that's the only energy, the most popular energy in the world in this reality, but it isn't. There's so many other things we give, hope, motivation, the element of fire that ignites people, that ignites their dreams, that gives them hope, and so many other things that way. So, so I like to incorporate a little bit of all that. But most of the cacao does come from Africa. It's also closer to France. And there's so many beautiful plantations in Africa, and they do it in such a nice way. I love Africa so much. It is the motherland of all. You and I are lighter color because of our pigmentation, our melanine's lost, but yeah, we're all from there.
Yeah.
Could have been a lot darker.
As they say, it's the birthplace of civilization. Do you make it over to America much, or?
Yes, I do. What was the last time? I think a year ago. Yeah, so last time was in Miami. I've done New York as well. I go to Canada. My brother lives there. My brother's kind of has his own dream that's come true. Him and his wife. It's beautiful. It reminds me a little bit of so his version, I suppose, of where you're at. And he got himself a ranch outside of Montreal. He's out of the system, of the Canadian system, which I can't blame him for. So he's got his own ranch, his own chicken farm that he built. And he loves his chickens so much. He's got such a bond with them. And they're growing everything on their land, and they're eating from their land. They've got a well for the water. They make their own soaps, their own everything. It's just magical. I see it. I keep up with them, and I'm amazed every time. I'm like, where did you learn to do this? You're like, I wanted to. I figured it out. It's not that complicated to survive in life and build your own things. So it's very beautiful to see this man come into his own kingdom beautifully with his family.
Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing. I have a feeling I could talk to you all night. It's just wonderful. There's so much for touching on here, but I guess it's almost midnight here, and I let you on with your day. But I really appreciate you coming on, and so much good conversation. And I hope we can continue the connection and stay in touch, and maybe have you on again sometime in the future. And come check out, it's AvalonEcoVillage.org. That's our website for our eco village. I think you'll really love what you see.
And I will visit eventually.
Yes, please.
I'll make it there.
That was the next thing I was going to say. Next time you come to this side of the world, come visit.
And when you come to this side of the world, come visit.
I will. Dubai's on the list. I definitely have been very intrigued. Many blessings and much love, and thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time and your insights. Subscribe, like, share, follow. You know the routine. Thanks for listening.